Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I'm going to say a few words that all Indians would love to hear. India is unstoppable. It's going to be the centrality of India that is going to count in the future. To discuss this very exciting topic for India, I have with me Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. As I'm going to say again, India is unstoppable. So,
Oh, yeah, I think you hit it on the nail, Adi. Uh, the flurry of visitors who are coming to India in the past, say, 5 to 10 days, and the kind of interactions which are taking place indicates that India is going to be central in the new scheme of things and the new global order. And it is just the right moment to discuss it. I've already written an article about it, which is a lot of people have read. I'll only request people to read that article again in line with this discussion which we are now going to have.
So, since you mentioned the foreign visits, let me start with that. As we speak, we also know that the Russian foreign minister is here. Dr. Jay Shankar is doing, his meetings with the United Kingdom's foreign secretary as well. So there's a lot which is happening. Now, the question is not about these visits. The question is, of course, we'll get to know what these visits are in due course, and when it is required. But from a fragile country, which was not looked at for a long time, what was the point in time in recent history that has kind of changed everything for us?
See, a lot of people will think that this Ukraine crisis is what brought India into the scheme of things. No, India, the globe has gone through two major events in the past 2 years. One is a pandemic, and the other is now the Ukrainian crisis. As the pandemic started and it was in its way and pop and all that, I remember a WHO official said, I'm very confident that India will lead. In fact, they were looking up for India to lead the world out of the crisis. He said this just as the pandemic had started. Sure enough, everyone has gone through so many waves of this pandemic. But you look at it, at the end of the day, India has emerged to be a big player in this pandemic, or rather quelling this pandemic, in terms of its ability to handle the pandemic, in terms of its ability to handle the vaccination program, ability to reach out to people, right? And today, when others are still grappling with this pandemic, we are out of it, right? Whether it's Omicron, Delta, you look at China, which is now grappling. After having declared victory, they are suffering defeat, right? So we were well off then. Then, of course, we came off creditably with our clash with China. People might talk whatever they want, but in the recent history of PLA and China and the way China is built, there's only India which has stood up and made PLA retract. No one else has had the thing to do that. And of course, this crisis, right, has proven that India is central to global affairs. Both Ukraine and Russia have reached out to us as we have to them for various issues. And everyone is looking towards India and to see what India is going to do and how it's going to do. Right? So, this is one part of the story, right? But there's a second aspect why everyone has started looking to us. The second aspect is the big five, the permanent members of the UN Security Council, that is USA, UK, France, Russia, and China. They abdicated most of the responsibilities during the pandemic. I have no doubt about it. They are part of the crisis. They are not apart from the crisis to solve the crisis. They are part of the crisis. Together, they have made UN irrelevant. Outside this big five, in fact, I will call them the failed five. This failed five outside that, which are the big countries which can handle, give stability to the globe? India, Germany, and Japan. But when you look at Germany and Japan, they're also part of the West and the Western construct. They're either part of EU or Japan toes the US line. So it is only India. And it is my honest opinion that India's time has come. Others might agree or not agree. India, like you said, uh, has its great weaknesses. There's no doubt.
Every
But
country
it's
has.
got some tremendous strengths, right? Till now, we were a country which had more weaknesses than strengths. But I think from here onwards, we're going to be a country with more strengths than weaknesses in the balance. And that is why it is going to be central to everything.
Whatever said and done, so you spoke about the failed five, and one couple of news which is coming out which talks about the factor that the so-called security guarantors of the world today are doing business with Russia in spite of sanctioning them, finding ways and means out, uh, for the counter sanctions that the Russians have hit them with. And there is a deadline which talks about Russian ruble transactions, and the European Union is scrambling to meet
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I
So,
agree.
that is a change of stance with regards their perception and their so-called global standing against Russia. We see India, which has kept a constant stand, whatever it may be. That sends a message to the world.
There's no doubt about it. You see, the West went into sanctions without thinking the repercussions.
Yeah,
I don't think they thought through the whole thing, especially with so much dependency on Russia. They went through these sanctions. One thing which people have, forgotten, and I think that's a major thing which most of the Western thinkers have forgotten. Russia is a self-sufficient country. Territorially, it is the biggest nation in the world. It exports everything. It exports energy. It exports technology. It exports food. It is a self-sufficient nation, except for the fact that it has got a slightly lesser population. Everything else is up. Count how many more self-sufficient nations are there in the world, except only two more: US and to a lesser extent France. Both India and China are not. They might have big populations, everything. Especially China is a very vulnerable nation in terms of energy and resources. Now, how can you harm a fully resourced nation like Russia economically? Right? It had to backfire.
mm.
So it's backfiring on the West, and it's backfiring, and where it will go, we don't know. But in this, we took a stance in the beginning as per our national interests. One, we also didn't abdicate our global responsibility by insisting on territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations. We also reached out to Russia right from day one. We also reached out to Ukraine from day one. We have maintained our stance. And when Russia put up that point in the UN for a resolution against Ukraine, we abstained. It is not that we have abstained for Russia, we have abstained against Russia and both. And we still have said that, and we kept all our channels open. Today, both the countries respond to us. Not only both, everyone responds to us. Our thing has not changed. We have not broken any sanctions legally. People talk, America has said India should be conscious of which side of history it is on. I am very confident of one thing. It might not be in the American side of history or on the side of American history or Western history or Chinese history or Russian history, and I couldn't care a bloody damn. As far as I'm concerned, India is on the right side of Indian history, and that's what matters in Indian national interest.
Absolutely.
So we are okay. We have done best for our people. As those people are in their way of thinking, let them do it.
The funny thing is that everybody thinks that the people that are coming and visiting India are coming to threaten India. I mean, they could do that sitting in their own country. They didn't need to run to India to come and threaten it. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense.
No, it doesn't make a sense at all. After what Wongi was told, I think everyone should also have got a message. But well, they have to come. Let them come. We can discuss that.
Fair enough, sir. There are enough visits, and I think we can look at the statements and see where they go. So, whatever said and done, polarization of the world is something that we can see. The Russia-China alliance is becoming stronger. Uh, Now they're openly. Wongi, as a matter of fact, said it yesterday in a bilateral meeting with his Russian counterpart that this relationship is getting stronger. So there is emergence of camps. Now, leaving apart the camp politics for a minute, my question to you would be that India's stand with any one of these camps would be the clincher for them. That's part one. And part two about, of course, the camp politics for this whole thing and how India needs to kind of figure it out. And we have been doing it right till now.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're going to go into a bit of an uncertain phase. I won't say uncertain phase. We are pretty certain where what we want to do. A bit of a phase where we have to be careful in what we are doing, right? And for many reasons, and it's quite well known. There's no doubt there's a transatlantic consolidation, a remilitarization of EU, and there's going to be a huge Western construct which is going to come up. NATO has reinvented itself. That's one block. The Russia-China axis is going to grow stronger because they don't have any other choice. Neither Russia has a choice, nor China has a choice. That's going to go, and with it will go a few countries. We don't know which, but obviously North Korea will go with them, and maybe a lot of third, African countries might go with them, right? For reasons different. So in this, the Middle East has come up again as a fence sitter for many reasons. The entire Middle East bloc, we don't know whether it's going to swing towards China or towards US. But that's they'll make a difference in the energy balance of the world, but not in the overall balance, right? And it won't be easy for the Middle East to swing to China overnight. Right? Neither China has the heft to take them on as it, or neither can Middle East get away from
US that easily.
US that easily. So it leaves India. One thing we should be clear: whichever way India swings, that camp will become stronger. On that, we should have no doubts. And that is one of the reasons why everyone is here. The West is worried that India might go towards China and Russia. Right? So they're coming. What they're coming with is a different story right now, right? And they're going to talk of a lot of democracy and all that. But the question they have to answer, what do they give India? What do they bring to India? What is the value for India? Right? Not being in their camp, what are the shared values we have to work on? Shared interests. How do those shared interests manifest on ground? That's the question. On the other hand, if we go towards China, Russia, the West will be at a great disadvantage. Right? But we have problems with China. As long as China, Pakistan are together, and as far as the boundary question is not settled, as far as the trade imbalance between China and India is not equated or equalized, we have issues with China. And China is our main adversary, not now. Since the time Mr. George Fernandez said that China is our adversary number one. And if Russia and China are going to be the axis, or rather a group, right? We have a problem with Russia. There's no doubt about it. How do you manage this relationship with Russia is the issue, and I'm sure that will be discussed today. Right? And we have as many problems with Russia, we also have opportunities with Russia. How do you leverage them without swinging towards the Russia-China camp? And how do you leverage them? By being in the Western camp or leaning towards the Quad, because by being in Quad, you are almost in the Western camp, is a question. And what do you get out of this is a question. It's not a non-aligned question. In an earlier day, one might say, oh, India is non-aligned. Today, we are not non-aligned. You are multi-aligned. It is multilateralism. How do you get the best out of everything for yourself is a question, right? So let us see. That's the issue, and that is what India has to look at.
That's the bottom line of bottom line, sir.
Yeah, bottom line.
So in the region of Indo-Pacific, and I'm going to take this question up with regards the Shaky Modi comment that actually became a meme after Joe Biden's comment. Of course, within 24 hours, there was a lot of cleanup that was done. We also saw a comment today by the Deputy National Security Advisor of US. This keeps happening. They pass a comment and then they withdraw it, and the withdrawal is done by re-emphasizing India's position as a leadership role within the Indo-Pacific. It is always the Quad, the Indo-Pacific, and this and that, and it's always pushed towards India to look towards the east, and that is something which is commendable as far as India's position is concerned, because at some point of time it was a very wishy sort of I won't call it an alliance, but a grouping. How do you see this entire change with the US politic and the comments?
See, at this point of time, the USA is more concentrated on the European theater. Okay, but they have not lost sight of the Indo-Pacific. Emotively, they react on the European theater, but rationally, they are alive to this Indo-Pacific theater. Right? Now, USA has this old habit of saying either you are with us or against us. So many of their statements are in that tone, and I leave it at that. Okay, so they talk something and then they suddenly realize they have put their foot in the mouth. Okay, they have spoken of India being shaky. How wobbly they have been is very clear, right? And there's another issue which we must also know is you cannot trust USA. Zelensky tried USA and got Ukraine. Okay, Pakistan trusted USA and got Imran or whatever you call it. Right. So there are so many countries which have trusted USA, or rather, Pakistan trusted USA and got Bangladesh. Right. So they putting your full trust in USA is asking for trouble. Okay, you have to deal with USA on issues, and those issues have to be dealt with on national interest. That's one.
Sure.
Second, look at it any way you want. Unless India is there in the Quad, the Indo-Pacific strategy is going for a toss. There's no Indo-Pacific strategy. If the US people make a mistake of pushing India into the Chinese hands and the Russian hands, onto that axis, you will see as Asia-Pacific emergence. Okay, not Indo-Pacific. So they are very clear about it. So you are central to any Asia-Pacific concept, Indo-Pacific construct. 50% of Indo-Pacific is India, and India and the Indian. After all, we have to remember, Indian Ocean is the only ocean which is named after a country, India. There has to be some reason for the civilizational name given. It is not right. It is through civilizations this name has come. You control or you matter for the entire trade routes, everything. Your influence runs from the Horn of Africa to the Malacca Strait, unquestioned. If the Americans want to do anything in the Pacific and they don't have the Indo, Forget it. They know
Speak.
it. So they have to come to us, right? They have no choice. Similarly, we also have no choice. We can't let China run riot. We
No.
can't go into the Chinese camp at all because they'll make us a junior partner and exploit us like everyone. They exploit everyone else. Even Wang Yi in his recent visit and all has given enough indications that whatever happens, China considers itself supreme, not and India has to join China. It is not that both join each other. So there's no question. But USA has to be cognizant of India's reality. Unless they're cognizant of that reality, we're going to have a problem. And till then, we need to do what is best in our national interest.
Absolutely. No question in that. So, ideally, and since we're talking about centrality is like a pillar of strength. And that is something that India should look at. And that's something which is my opinion. What do you think should be the role of a central state for the world? How can India actually, form itself into a centrality state further ahead?
Yeah. Look, the first thing of centrality is that you should matter to the world economy, right? In terms of scale, India is the only alternative to China. Today, the world economy runs largely on the Chinese manufacturing prowess and its progress. If we have to matter for everyone, we are the only ones for the globe who can, and as these groupings are emerging and certain amount of decoupling will take place, it is only India which can be the alternate in terms of scale, right? But okay, the second thing is you are one of the best democracies. You are a country with a lot of soft power. You are a country where people you are trusted, right? It is historic and civilizational. The Middle East trusts you. The neighboring countries have suddenly rediscovered their trust in India.
Yeah.
Okay, Japan trusts you. Okay, there's a trust factor. While the West has not been totally with you, they trust you for your predictability and they know your vulnerabilities and your strengths.
Mm.
So you bring that to the table, right? You bring a young, vibrant population which is on the rise to the table. You bring an experienced armed force to the table, which will be required in this Indo-Pacific security construct. You bring a nation which has gone to the space, which has a vibrant space program to the table. You are one of the few countries outside the Big Five who has a vibrant space program. You've gone to the moon, you've gone to the Mars. You have one of the best health industries. You are one of the leaders in uh, eradicating this pandemic. So you get a lot, right? So with all this, whoever we side with will be the heavier factor in global politics. I hope it answers your question.
As a matter of fact, yes, sir, because that's the next question one thinks about. Okay, you've come to a point in history where you're kind of now being considered as a balancing state. What is it that you need to do? And which brings me to the last point. In your opinion, what are things that India must look at achieving in terms of its own stability for actually achieving a goal of, currently it's I would say we are at that position, but it's a beginning of that position and we need to strengthen our existence and stuff like that. What do you think are the sectors that India needs to concentrate on apart from diplomacy and foreign policies?
See, I've always said India needs to concentrate on five things. to be a great power. The first thing it has to concentrate is on water. The second thing it has to concentrate is on its defense. The third thing it has to concentrate is on the digital sector, in which it has got tremendous strengths. The fourth thing it has to concentrate is on health, right? Because it's got tremendous capability in this. And the fifth thing it has to concentrate is on energy. It has to reduce energy dependence and go in for alternatives. If you do these five, right, you will see India is a different story altogether. I mean, remember, we are already self-sufficient in food. We are food surplus.
Yeah.
Today, when there's a food crisis happening, people are looking at India for its huge wheat surplus. Okay, we are politically we are free, right? Technologically, in many issues we've got freedom. But in these five sectors which I have said, we need to do that to be what we are, right? And we need to choose our friends with care. Okay, and we need to choose our friends based on certain mutual respects. It cannot be a one-way story, right? Uh, so these are the things which we should do to be a global leader. And of course, we need to maintain good equations. Where equations are good, we need to strengthen them. Where equations are nascent, we need to build them. Right? And then we need to think outward. We need to think outward, out of India to this thing. Now, internally, we need to be politically strong. We need to, resolve our internal issues, which are many, right? Ethnic issues or religious issues or many, insurgencies, uh, language-based issues. Those issues we need to resolve.
It's a lot to do, sir. As a matter of fact, and India looks ready to do it because of the kind of effort that is happening within the neighborhood itself. One can actually see change in the attitudes of neighbors that were, iffy at a certain.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If I may. So that has been a big change which we've seen within India's position and stance, and we've discussed this. As a matter of fact, I'm not less than about a month and a half or two ago when we took up the Myanmar and the Sri Lanka issue.
Sri Lanka issue, yeah, there's a turnaround there.
It's literally turned around. We had put across that it has to have a concerted effort. There has to be an approach out, and there has to be a balancing act that India must create. And we see these military agreements being signed, and we see a whole lot of trade and stuff like that done. So it's important, and I absolutely agree with you, sir. So this is a discussion where I think all of us as Indians feel proud. There are obviously situations in the world which aren't very happy, but we would be a fool not to actually turn them around to our advantage, and that's something that we must understand. It's not being a gore about certain things; it's about being a realist, and that is something which is I'd like to put across very, very clearly, and that's something that you've also brought out very, very nicely, sir. Thank you so much. Till next time, sir. Another subject.
2 points to put across. In fact, 1 point to put across. There are certain things we should not do also in this entire thing. One is we should not attempt to be another China. As we progress and become an economic powerhouse, and which is predestined, almost, or rather, it's on the cards. We have to look after the fact that becoming a economic powerhouse comes with huge problems of pollution and environment and other related issues. So we shouldn't go the China way. Mindless progress is not the answer. Okay, equitable, inclusive growth and the balanced growth is the way forward. The second is that whatever happens, India should not forget that it needs to get into strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy also means less dependent on other nations for its day-to-day requirements, whether it's defense or anything, or it's manufacturing. So that business of Atmanirbharta gains importance. We cannot afford to be dependent either on Russia or on China or on the West. That is something we should do our best to get away from.
Take a small example.
This is something we should not forget. Yeah.
You took an example of France, such a tiny little country.
Yeah, which is
exerts a lot of
France
power
can do
across
it,
the world because it's got everything for going for itself. And that's something that we must learn. I mean, thank you for that interruption, sir, because that's, I think, the very important thing that we must look at, and we must, if I may, not become arrogant as China, flouting our power rather than actually helping people out with that particular thing. And that's what the Indian culture is all about. Sorry, no matter what the crisis was, I think the Indian aid or Indian medical supplies or Indian vaccines or whatever has happened, we've been there the first. And that is something I think the world is noticing. Thank you so much, sir. Till next time, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.